morning Year 10, happy Monday. I hope you're well and had a good weekend. Okay, so today we are leaving behind those horrible question 2 summary and inference questions, and we're moving on to something that's a bit more familiar to you, I hope, which is analysing language. Now, what do we mean by that? Cast your minds back. This is the same skill as you have been doing in your English literature when we've been analysing passages from A Christmas Carol, for example. It's also the same thing that you will be doing in English Language Paper 1. So we're looking at analysing language. How does a writer use language in a particular way to create a particular effect? So the things we are looking for are things like metaphors and similes. Specific words like adjectives, adverbs and verbs. Things like semantic field, where a piece of text may have lots of references to things like vehicles or cars or nature or, death, whatever it is. Lots of words that relate to a particular category. Pathetic fallacy, gosh, that's used a lot in A Christmas Carol, isn't it, with Charles Dickens, where the weather reflects the mood. Use of colour, lots of colour imagery, using your senses, 5 senses, what you can see, feel, hear, taste, touch, smell, that kind of thing. So basically you're looking for anything that stands out to you as particularly intriguing or unusual. So that's all it is, it's what you've done before. So let's have a look at couple of examples. Oh, my stupid face. Let's move it over there. Okay, so I thought what I would do to start you off is to have a look at a couple of examples of an author describing a character, because that's what we're going to look at in our Greatest Showman non-fiction. So this is from Hard Times by Charles Dickens. And this is the introduction of this particular character, so let's read it through. He was a rich man, banker, merchant, manufacturer and whatnot. A big, loud man with a stare and a metallic laugh. A man made out of coarse material, which seemed to have been stretched to make so much of him. A man who was always proclaiming through that brassy speaking trumpet of a voice of his old ignorance and his old poverty. A man who was the bully of humility. So quite an unpleasant sounding character there. If you want to pause the video and pick out a few words that strike you as particularly unusual or powerful or paint a particularly strong image in your mind, do that now. And I'm going to go through and just pick out 3 different areas of things to look at. So, first thing I've picked up on are these 3 words: rich, big and loud. And of course those 3 words are all adjectives. Okay, rich, big and loud. So I've picked out 3 adjectives. You could talk about what effect they have, what meaning they create, how do they present this particular character. Rich, big and loud. This isn't someone shy and retiring. This isn't someone who's going to be meek and vulnerable. This is someone who's going to be kind of confident. I've also picked out metallic laugh and bully of humility, because I thought these were quite interesting to describe someone's laugh as metallic. Now laughter can't actually be made of metal, can it? So those are both metaphors. A metallic laugh, so when he laughs it doesn't sound natural, doesn't sound human, it sounds almost robotic. So perhaps this chap is quite emotionless and quite cold, because metal is cold to the touch, isn't it? He's also described as the bully of humility. Now that isn't literally his title, is it? He hasn't got a crown that says bully of humility. Humility is being it's like the opposite of boastful, being sort of humble. So this man bullies the idea of being humble, so he doesn't think that you should be humble. So again, he's very sort of brash and kind of uncompromising, probably. And then the last thing I've picked up on is this verb, proclaiming. Now, if you proclaim something, it's like a very strong way of declaring something. You're telling the world, people need to hear me. I'm going to proclaim to you. So this man doesn't just speak, he proclaims. Like, he thinks people should listen to him. So those are just 5 quotes I've picked out there, which give us a particular view of this man. So what we need to be doing is a bit of point, evidence, explain. And if I was asking you to write about this, a good way to start when you're analysing language is to start with a chosen key word, which is a quote from the text, and then make a sort of chain of connotations, always linking back to that key word to decide how the writer wants us, the reader, to view this particular character. So I've decided to start with the word rich. That was the first adjective I picked out, wasn't it? Here we go. Rich. He was a rich man. Okay, so I'm going to start with the word rich. And then connotations, like kind of like word association. What does rich make you think of? Well, to me, that tells me he's got no money worries. He's not awake at night worrying about not being able to afford to pay the bills. Lucky him. So he's got no money worries. So what does that mean? If you're not worried about money, it means you're secure. Okay, so he is completely secure financially, which would give him some confidence. If you're secure, you're confident. If you're confident, you're strong. Yes, emotionally, mentally strong. Confident people are not weak, they are strong emotionally. And if he's strong, perhaps he's a very powerful character. Perhaps this character is going to behave in quite a boisterous, powerful way. So that sort of link there, that chain, rich, no money worries, secure, confident, strong, powerful, you could use that to write up a proper point, evidence, explain paragraph, couldn't you? You could say Dickens presents this character as having no money worries. He describes him as being rich, which tells us that he is financially secure. Perhaps this character, therefore, is a confident man who is emotionally strong, and Dickens is presenting him to us in this way to show us that he is a powerful person. How cool is that? So that's that Dickens one. I'm going to read you this extract from Huckleberry Finn now. It's a really nice extract. I don't know if you know this book, Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. It was made into a TV series a couple of times, I think. So let's read the description of this character, the first time we meet this particular character. He was most 50, that means almost 50, and he looked it. His hair was long and tangled and greasy and hung down, and you could see his eyes shining through like he was behind vines, like this. It was all black, no grey, so was his long mixed up whiskers. There weren't no colour in his face where his face showed. It was white, not like another man's white, but a white to make a body sick, a white to make a body's flesh cruel, a tree-toad white, a fish belly white. Okay, if you want to, you can pause the video again here and pick out some words, phrases that strike you as being particularly interesting. I'll show you what I've picked out. So again, I've gone for some adjectives to begin with, describing his hair. Long, tangled, and greasy. So he sounds like he's unkempt, perhaps he's like a bit of a tramp, perhaps He doesn't care about his appearance. The next thing I've picked out is this lovely simile. You can see his eyes shining through his hair. Let me just, like this. His hair hanging down over his face. But his eyes are shining through like he's behind vines. I think that's a really interesting image to describe his hair as vines. Wonder why he's chosen that. We'll have a look at that in a minute. And then I think this imagery is really interesting. The white of his skin is described as a tree toad white and a fish belly white. Now, if you haven't realised, this is American. So presumably an American reader in 1885 would know what tree toad white is. Presumably there's a tree toad that's a white colour. But they're both images of nature, aren't they? There's lots of reference to nature. Vines, tree toad, fish belly. So perhaps this man is someone who's quite closely linked with nature. Perhaps he doesn't live in a smart city or a town. Perhaps he's a tramp who lives in the woods or something. So I want to do the same thing as I did with the Dickens one. I'm going to choose a key quote and make a chain of connotations from that one quote. So starting with the vines this time, like I said I would. I love that image, like this simile, like he was behind vines. So vines make me think of the wild, the wilderness, nature. Vines hanging down from the trees. It's wild. This is his hair. It's wild. What does wild make you think of? Something that isn't tame. Okay, so he is not tame. He's got this aura about him that's not tame. Like, I don't think he'd be quite well behaved at a black tie dinner party, perhaps. He's free. Okay, he's not restricted by society, perhaps. He doesn't obey the rules, okay? So perhaps that means that this character is unconventional, okay? Doesn't stick to the conventions of society. Perhaps this character is going to be one that leads other characters astray or shows other characters a different point of view. So we start with the word vines and then we make these links, these connections to get to where we think the author wants us to be in terms of our reactions to him. So your task, which I'm going to ask you to do for Wednesday or on Wednesday in Wednesday's lesson, is going to be, I'm just going to get rid of my face completely, it's annoying me, is going to be to write up an analysis of this part of the extract. And you can do point, evidence, analyse, link, using the technique here, and use that kind of connotation chain to help you. So we're going to be using source B only, which is the bit from P.T. Barnum's account of how he met when he met Tom Thumb, and this is the question that I'm going to ask you to do on Wednesday, which is how does the writer use language to describe Tom Thumb and Barnum's reaction to him? So that's what you're going to have to do. So what you'll need to do on Wednesday is go through picking out words, phrases that show you what his reaction is. And I will be sending you this sheet here, this extract analysis, which gives you tasks, find adjectives, find similes, which should really, really help you narrow it down and get to grips with what you need to be picking up on. So what I'm going to do today is just read this through, and then you can keep this, keep referring to it, no lesson on Tuesday, and then we'll refer back to this on Wednesday, and you can actually write up your response. There are actually 12 marks available for this, so this is worth more than the summary question, so you should be spending about 15 minutes writing it up. But let's read through it. I had heard of a remarkably small child in Bridgeport, and by my request, my brother brought him to the hotel. He was the smallest child I ever saw that could walk alone. He was not 2 feet in height and weighed less than 16 pounds. He was a bright-eyed little fellow with light hair and ruddy cheeks, was perfectly healthy and as symmetrical as an Apollo. He was exceedingly bashful, but after some coaxing he was induced to converse with me, and he told me that he was the son of Sherwood E. Stratton, and that his own name was Charles S. Stratton. After seeing him and talking with him, I at once determined to secure his services from his parents and to exhibit him in public. He was only 5 years old, and to exhibit a dwarf of that age might provoke the question, how do you know that he is a dwarf? Some licence might indeed be taken with the facts, but even with this advantage, I really felt that the adventure was nothing more than an experiment, and I engaged him for the short term of 4 weeks at $3 per week, all charges, including travel and boarding of himself and mother, being at my expense. They arrived in New York on Thanksgiving Day, December 8th, 1842, and Mrs. Stratton was greatly astonished to find her son heralded in my museum bills as General Tom Thumb, a dwarf of 11 years of age, just arrived from England. Okay, so it's just that bit you're looking at, and you're picking up the language that's been used to describe Tom Thumb and Barnum's reactions. Now, you already know what Barnum's reaction to him is, because you did that last week. His reaction to him is that he's actually kind of intrigued and entranced and thinks this kid is quite awesome and special. So we already have our points for our point evidence explain. Now you need to pick out the quotes that tell you that that's how he views him. So if I just pop this, so if I just pop that back up, this is the kind of thing I'm going to ask you to do next lesson, to pick up some words. I will send this to you on Show My Homework on Wednesday, and you can have a look at it then. You'll probably need to read through this a couple of times, picking out the adjectives and the adverbs and the phrases and the imagery that you find particularly interesting. I think the allusion to Apollo, you might want to Google Apollo, find out who Apollo was, because he describes him as being symmetrical as an Apollo, which is quite an interesting thing. So if there's anything there that you don't understand, look it up, email me, message me. But I just want you to prepare yourself mentally for this switch now from the summary to the language, and it's point evidence explain. Any questions, please contact me. Good luck. I'll speak to you, well, I won't speak to you, I'll set you some work on Wednesday. Bye.